It was my grandson Jacob's 6th birthday. The house was packed. Children ran laughing through the living room, and the plastic wrapping of gifts crinkled open. The scent of buttercream frosting mingled with the blare of pop music and the chaos of running feet. It was loud. It was a mess. It was a party. Rebecca, my daughter, and her husband Jason knelt beside Jacob, who stood proudly at the center, dressed head to toe in a cheap night costume from the grocery store. He swung a plastic sword as if he'd just returned victorious from an epic battle. Jeffrey, my husband, was sunk deep into the couch, laughing and waving a small toy away from Jacob's face, making exaggerated boo and growling noises to make him giggle. And I was in the kitchen. The stove hissed and steamed behind me. I moved back and forth like a waitress on a Saturday night, chopping, frying, stirring, checking the oven. The kitchen door remained closed, muffling the party's noise. Through that thick wooden panel, I couldn't make out the words. Only laughter, always laughter.
Mom, Rebecca callet from the living room. Don't forget Jacob's favorite dessert, the vanilla pudding.
And listen, I brought some special soy sauce from Denver. You can use it for your chili beans. My goodness, I haven't had those in ages. Oh, and could you also make a chicken casserole? Yours is better than any restaurant I've ever been to. I smiled faintly but didn't reply. It was a hollow smile, one that looks real if you don't look too closely. Every dish she mentioned required hours of preparation. Marinating, slow roasting, homemade dough. This wasn't just food, it was an endurance test. I sighed, wiped my hands, went to the door and called out, "Jeffrey, I have too much to do in here. Can you come wash this meat for me?" The laughter outside didn't stop. No answer.
I kellet luda, noting.
I waited, then gave up, rolled up my sleeves, went back to the cutting board, and continued. 3 hours later, the kitchen looked like a battlefield. The floor was splattered with oil. Dirty pots stacked in the sink. My hands were red and swollen from incessant chopping. Even my back refused to straighten completely. But before I called everyone to eat, I took a deep breath. I adjusted my apron. I practiced a smile. I had news, something I wanted to share, something that might bring a little of my own excitement into the living room. That morning, I'd bought a scratch-off ticket at the grocery store. Just a whim. It's Jacob's birthday, I thought, maybe I'll get lucky. I scratched it off, leaning against the counter as the sauce simmered. Then I froze completely. $10,000. I scanned it 3 times. I checked the state lottery website twice, convinced it had to be a misprint. But it was real. I had won. A ticket, bought at the convenience store around the corner, and just like that, my life started to unravel. A sign, perhaps, from the universe. You don't have to live like this anymore. I'd planned to tell everyone at dinner. It would be fun. Surprise them, share the winnings. Not a huge fortune, but enough for everyone to get something. A birthday present for Jacob, and maybe for me too, in a way. But then Jacob stormed into the kitchen. He had a scowl on his face. "You didn't bring any cake," he snarled. "I don't want your food anymore." Before I could react, he grabbed a glass of lemonade from the counter and threw it. I don't know if he meant to hit me, but he did. The sticky liquid struck my chest, soaking my shirt. I gasped, stumbled back, and hit the cabinet. The glass smashed on the tiles, shattering. I didn't even have time to say a word before Jeffrey yelled from the living room, "Come on, he's just a kid, don't make a drama." I stood there, drenched. My palms burned with shock. No one came in, no one looked up. They continued eating cake, staring at their phones, as if I didn't exist. And then it happened. That quiet spark inside me. It simply went out, as if someone had pulled the plug on a lamp. No light, no warmth, the pretense was over. I forced myself to swallow the pain in my chest, put my expression back on, and carried out the last dish, wondering if this was the right moment to share the lottery news. But as I stepped out of the kitchen and approached the table, my feet suddenly froze. Next to Jeffrey sat a flawlessly dressed woman with a polite smile on her lips. Her eyes scanned the table with the self-possession of someone who had been there many times before, as if she belonged. She turned her head, smiled at me, and said softly, "Hello, Cynthia." It took a moment for me to place her face. Amy Miller. When Jeffrey and I were in high school, she was the girl he adored. He wrote her love letters, drew her face in his notebooks. He probably would have etched her into the yearbook if they'd let him. Eventually, she moved away, got married, and everyone went their separate ways. Recently, I'd seen her husband's obituary on Facebook, and now she was here, sitting at my table, close to Jeffrey, close enough to seem as if she'd taken my place before I even knew it was vacant. Her appearance came too quickly, so quickly that it seemed she had been waiting at the door, counting the minutes until I finally stepped aside. I opened my mouth to greet her, to remain polite, but Jeffrey interrupted me with a piercing glare and an impatient tone. What took you so long? People are starving. What the hell were you doing in there?
The words hit me like a slap.
It wasn't a greeting, no concern, just a reprimand. As if the last 3 hours I'd spent sweating over every dish were nothing but an annoyance. Then he turned to Amy, carefully placing a rib on her plate, and smiled. A smile I hadn't seen on his face in years. Try this, Amy. She's not particularly good at cooking, but she can get this right. She can cook. And just like that, I was catapulted into an alternate version of my life, where I was the stranger in my own home. Before I could say a word, Jacob jumped up and yelled, "Grandma secretly ate food in the kitchen, that's why I'm so hungry." Rebecca chimed in, laughing. Really? And how do you know that, sweetie? Jacob puffed out his cheeks proudly. I saw it. She ate by herself and didn't give me any. My fingers trembled slightly at the edge of the tablecloth. The chili had simmered for hours. The cake had to be folded by hand and baked fresh. The pudding had to cool just right. I hadn't eaten a bite all day, but to them, I was just the greedy one, secretly stealing food, too selfish to share, too antisocial to join the family fun. I swallowed the lump in my throat and said softly, "No, sweetie, Grandma didn't steal any food." That's not true. I was in the kitchen because some dishes weren't even ready yet. Jeffrey slammed his hand on the table, and his chair scraped as he stood up. Seriously, he's 6 years old. Are you really arguing with a child? He glared at me as if I were the one ruining the meal, as if I were the one disturbing the peace. I looked around at the faces of my family. No one defended me. My voice was stuck in my throat. I couldn't utter a single word. I was about to explain when Rebecca came over and gently patted Jacob's back. Her face was full of impatience. "Mom, he's 6. He doesn't know any better." She looked at me as if I were a lunatic for arguing with a child. Jacob's lips trembled, and tears quickly welled in his eyes. He began to sob and ran straight into Amy's arms. She didn't hesitate for a moment. She lifted him, embraced him as if he were her own grandchild, stroked his back and murmured, "Oh Jacob, don't be sad, don't cry, Grandma Amy is here." She said it so softly, so naturally, as if that had always been her place. I stood there, nails digging into my palms, shoulders so tense I felt frozen. I opened my mouth to speak, but the words came out as a whisper I barely heard myself. My throat constricted, and it felt as if something inside me was breaking. I looked at the table. All familiar faces, but their gazes, indifferent, uncomfortable, cold, turned them into strangers. I searched their expressions for something, anything, a hint of compassion, but I only saw furrowed brows and averted eyes, as if they expected me to simply stop making a scene. Then, between sobs, Jacob pointed at me and yelled, "I don't want Grandma anymore. I want Grandma Amy, she's nicer." I stared, stunned, turning just in time to catch a hint of a smile on Amy's lips. Subtle, almost invisible, but I saw it. That wasn't kindness, that was triumph, a quiet, calculated victory. She held Jacob closer and said tenderly, "It's all right, sweetie. We'll stick with Grandma Amy from now on." "Okay," Rebecca cheerfully chimed in, standing beside her. "Yes, Jacob. Don't bother Grandma anymore." "Okay." In that moment, I felt as if I'd been shoved out of my own house. Everything felt alien. Even the family photos on the walls seemed to mock me. All the years I'd wiped tables, mended shirts, baked birthday cakes were now just splinters in my heart, like knife thrusts behind my eyes. "Amy's here, before it gets cold," Jeffrey's voice reached me. He had already re-embraced Jacob and pulled a chair closer for Amy, speaking softly to her. "Jacob, calm down. Let Grandma Amy enjoy her meal." I stood aside, watching him, and suddenly I remembered Rebecca as a little girl. She was demanding. She'd scream at every meal. Loud, relentless. Entire apartment complexes heard her. Jeffrey always said, "Can you take her out for a bit? I can't eat in peace." So I did. I rocked her, walked with her, fed her, and when I came back, he'd already finished. The table would be empty, except for the crumbs. I don't think I ate a single warm meal that year. And now Jeffrey knew how to hold a child. Now he could pull out a chair for a woman. Now he could be tender. So he could do all that, but not for me. I sat down at the other end of the table and watched them in silence. I didn't say a word, but I believe my face spoke volumes. Jeffrey frowned and tapped his fork on the table. "What, are you going to ruin Jacob's birthday now? That face is depressing." Rebecca chimed in. "Mom, can you just stop? It's Jacob's birthday. Do you really have to make us all miserable?" Jason added in a calm but cold voice, "Are you here to see your grandson or to put on a show?" "Mean grandma," Jacob mumbled, loud enough to be heard. That's when I finally understood. This wasn't a family gathering, it was a performance. And I was the character they had long since written out of the script. I took a deep breath, breathed silently, and with that breath, I let go of something invisible heavy that had held me for too long. "Jeffrey," I said in a firm, quiet voice, "let's get a divorce." The moment the words left my mouth, the dining room fell silent. All eyes turned to me, as if I had detonated something sacred during a meal. Jeffrey was the first to scoff, leaning back in his chair with a sneer. "Cynthia, you're 67. Do you think you're still in your 20s or something?" He paused, then twisted his lips into a contemptuous grin. "You say something like that and don't care if people laugh.
Who cares if you want a divorce at your age?"
I turned to him. His hand rested casually on Amy's thigh, as if it belonged there. He didn't even notice I was looking at him. I took a deep breath and spoke calmly, "If none of you are ashamed, why should I be?" His composure broke. He sprang up, and the chair scraped across the hardwood floor like a warning siren. "Stop the drama," he barked, trying to lower his voice.
"It's Jacob's birthday.
"I'm not going to argue with you here. Don't make this a scene." I let out a dry, quiet, exhausted laugh, utterly devoid of emotion. I knew, as I walked out of the kitchen, that this scene no longer belonged to me. I wasn't the one causing the drama. I was just the one who had finally woken up. I got up at 7 a.m., cooked 8 dishes, washed 4 pots, and somehow, I was the one who took too long. Jacob lied that I had stolen food, and not a single person at this table defended me. This was never my home. Not really. 40 years of marriage had turned me into someone who could be ignored, insulted, and replaced without even the courtesy of a conversation. Rebecca's voice interrupted again, sharp and tired. "Mom, do you really have to do this today? Aunt Amy is here.
Can't you just let it go?"
Jason, standing beside her, added in his usual cold tone, "We're here to celebrate, not to watch you fall apart." Jacob, still sniffling, mumbled, "I didn't lie." "Really?" Amy leaned forward, ready to speak. "He didn't do anything wrong. He's a sweet boy." I stood up. My fists clenched before I realized it. Plates clattered as my arms brushed the edge of the table. Some crashed to the floor, shattering into clean, shining pieces. The sound echoed through the room like a siren. I held my breath, swallowed the heat burning in my chest, and said louder, "Why? Why is it always me? I cook, I clean, I plan your vacations, and you all sit there, spitting on everything I do. I haven't even eaten. So, you know what? Neither will you." Jacob's face went pale. He immediately threw himself into Amy's arms. Rebecca and Jason froze, looking at me as if seeing me for the first time. And maybe they were. Perhaps I had never shown them this side of me before. I had always been the invisible one, the one with the kind face, the woman who never said no. I turned to Jeffrey, my voice firm and clear.
"Listen closely, Jeffrey.
I'm not joking. I'm done. I want a divorce. His jaw tensed, so tight that his lips formed a thin line. Through clenched teeth, he snarled, "What the hell is wrong with you?"
Calm down, you will just ruin the night.
Then he pointed at the broken plates. "Clean that up." I didn't move. My spine straightened like a steel rod.
No.
You all have hands and feet. Why does it always have to be me? From now on, I'm done. The tension in the room grew thicker, like a cable about to snap. I turned and walked to the front door. My fingers brushed the doorknob. Then I heard quick footsteps behind me and a desperate little voice. "Grandma, don't go." I turned instinctively. Jacob ran towards me, a half-full cup of hot chocolate in his hands. The same one Amy had given him earlier. He was running too fast, and his foot caught on the rug. The cup wobbled in his hand, and the steaming liquid splashed forward, directly onto my chest. The hot chocolate, almost scalding, soaked through my clothes and burned my skin. I gasped, slipped, and fell hard onto the floor near the front door. For 2 full seconds, the room was silent. Then Jacob froze and burst into loud, shrill cries like a siren. I hadn't yet recovered from the pain when I heard him wail between sobs. "Mean grandma, I won't let you go.
You don't like ML anymore."
His cup rolled to my feet and came to a stop, the chocolate still oozing onto the floor. My chest was drenched. My shirt clung to my skin, sticky, uncomfortable, humiliating. I tried to push myself up from the floor, but my hand brushed Jacob's leg, and he stumbled back, falling beside me and crying even louder. Rebecca ran to him, scooped him up, and shot me a sharp look, as if she'd slapped me across the face. "Mom, he's just a child. Was that really necessary? You became hysterical, overturned the table, and now you've scared him so much that he fell down." I blinked in disbelief. She didn't ask if I was hurt, she blamed me. "Do you really think he deliberately spilled hot chocolate on you? You stormed off like a fury. He panicked. What did you expect?" I looked at her. My chest felt tight, but the words wouldn't come. Then Amy approached, knelt beside Jacob, and wrapped her arms around him. Her tone soft and deliberate. "It's all right, sweetie. We'll get you changed, and this afternoon, we'll go pick out those superhero Lego sets you like. How does that sound?" She led him to the couch, gently wiped his face and hands with tissues, and soothed him with a smile so natural it seemed rehearsed, like a woman auditioning for the perfect role of the new grandma. And I sat there on the floor, drenched, trembling, discarded like an unwanted piece in someone else's family portrait. The pain was no longer just on my skin. I realized that this place, this table, this room, these people had never truly had a place for me. I slowly stood up, my fingers still trembling, but my voice was calm, too calm. "You know what?" I said. "The truth is, I'm glad. I had already made my decision before all of this." Jeffrey spun around abruptly, impatience written all over his face. "Cynthia, have you gone mad? Saying that in front of a child? What the hell are you trying to do?" Rebecca, Jason, and Amy stood nearby, neither surprised nor alarmed, just annoyed, as if I were ruining their party. Amy frowned. "Cynthia, I know you're Jacob's grandma, but you can't take this too seriously. He's 6, he doesn't know what he's doing." I looked at all of them, the broken cup on the floor, the cold leftovers still on the table, and for the first time in years, I felt something clear, sharp, cutting through the numbness. "Should I apologize?" I asked in a steady voice. "For what? For not being silent and playing the cook for another day, or for finally realizing how thoughtless this family has become?" I wasn't shouting, but each word fell like a stone. "You all like to pretend this is a family, but the truth is, you wrote me out a long time ago." Then I looked Amy directly in the eyes. "Your husband's funeral was days ago, and here you are, sitting at my table, holding my grandson as if you were born to it. If you're not ashamed, I'll be ashamed for you." Her smile faded. She opened her mouth to respond, but Jeffrey grabbed her arm before she could speak. I didn't wait. I turned and walked up the stairs. "I'm going to change," I said, my voice as calm as ever. "An Uber will be here to pick me up soon." And as I ascended the stairs, I added, without looking back, "This house? Enjoy it."
I'm done.
Jeffrey's face darkened instantly, as if something inside him had caught fire. He sprang up, and his wine glass crashed onto the table with a loud thud, splattering red across the white tablecloth, transforming into a deep, angry stain. "Who do you think you're humiliating?" he hissed, jaw clenched, his voice low but filled with rage. "Do you really dare to talk to Amy like that? She's here for Jacob's birthday, not to be your emotional punching bag." He began to advance on me, step by step, his eyes burning with the kind of anger that had simmered for years, held back, calculated, and now on the verge of boiling over. "You will apologize to her now." His hand rose slowly, stiff, almost mechanical, as if it no longer belonged to him, as if it alone would decide whether to strike or not. But it didn't land. Not because I flinched, for I didn't move at all. I stood there, chin raised, eyes fixed on his, unmoving. The air in the room vanished, the silence dense, absolute, as if a vacuum had swallowed us all. I stared at his raised hand. "Go on," I said in a steady voice. "Hit me. Give me back all those years with one blow." His expression wavered, his fist hung in the air for another moment, then fell limply to his side. He didn't hit me, but he lost. Not to me, but to the woman he thought would never raise her voice, the one he thought would always take whatever came her way. I breathed in deeply, exhaled slowly, and said quietly, "You want me to apologize? I won't. What exactly do I owe you? This dinner? I cooked every dish from scratch. I've been in that kitchen since dawn, and you've all sat there waiting for me to serve, to clean up, to take care of the children. And now you expect me to bow down to the woman who walked into my house as if she belonged here."
I let my gaze sweep around the room.
Rebecca, Jason, Amy, Jacob, his face streaked with tears. "I'm not throwing a tantrum," I said. "I'm finally seeing things clearly. This house hasn't been mine for a long time." I walked to the entryway, grabbing my coat and wallet from the bench. Behind me, Jeffrey barked, "If you walk out that door, you'll have nowhere to go tonight. Where do you think you'll end up?
Don't kid yourself.
No one will put up with you like I have." I didn't look back. My voice was cold and detached. "You're right. You've been incredibly patient. You've tolerated another woman eating my food in my house while my grandson calls her grandma."
My fingers closed around the doorknob.
As I opened the door, the evening breeze swept in, fresh and clear, washing over me like a baptism. Jeffrey's voice boomed on behind me, loud and theatrical, like a man trying to reclaim a stage. "She's leaving without family, without purpose. Let's see how long it takes her to come crawling back." I turned once, just once, to look at him. My eyes were calm. "No need.
I'm never coming back."
The door clicked shut behind me, sealing off the noise, the cold shoulders, the decades of sacrifice behind a final quiet snap. And I walked forward, onto the street, into the night. The wind pressed against my face, but I had never felt so clear in my life. Outside, I stood on the sidewalk and opened the Uber app. The car arrived quickly. I slid into the back seat, leaned my head against the window, and exhaled. A long, deep breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding for years. No more waiting at a cold bus stop, no more lines to grab tickets. Just sitting here, choosing my own ride, my own route. For the first time, I felt the lightness of making my own decisions. When I arrived at the hospital, my chest was red and blistered. The fabric of my shirt clung to my skin. Every breath felt like it scraped against bone. The ER doctor, a woman in her 30s with a quiet, serious demeanor, looked at me and frowned. "Ma'am, this is a pretty severe burn, hot liquid. Should we contact anyone?" I forced a tired smile. "No need. I live alone." She seemed about to say something else, but instead just nodded and began gathering supplies. I leaned back on the examination table and let her clean the wound. As the alcohol touched my raw skin, I sharply inhaled, but the pain seemed to tear out something deeper. Something old, heavy, buried. A cold draft from the vent brushed over the gauze, stinging and soothing at once. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something healing, not just my skin, but something quieter, something hidden. Half an hour later, I stepped out of the hospital into the twilight.
The sky was darkening, the air cooler.
I looked up and booked a room in a small hotel on the other side of town. It was an old inn in the historic district, and it cost a fair bit for the night. Jeffrey would have scoffed. You have no idea about money. A night here costs more than a week's groceries. But now I lay on a clean, soft mattress, freshly showered in new pajamas, buried in a sea of pillows. And for the first time, the feeling belonged to me. It meant belonging to myself. I unlocked my phone and typed into the search bar, "Divorce at 60. Now what?" The first result was a Reddit post titled, "My mom divorced in her 60s. That's when her life truly began." The comments poured in, "Do it, lady, it's never too late.
You deserve peace.
I'm 59 and started fresh. Go for it. Be happy." I read them over and over, and somehow, without realizing it, my eyes filled with tears. This was the strange magic of the internet. Strangers felt more like family than the people I had served for decades. And suddenly, I felt lighter. Who says life can't begin at 67? Even if I were 80, I could still rent an RV and drive to Chicago to see the snow. I could still learn to scuba dive in Hawaii. As long as I was breathing, I wouldn't suffocate in a kitchen steeped in grease and resentment. I leaned against the headboard, scrolling and reading until I fell asleep, still thinking of those encouraging words. When I woke, the room was dark.
The clock read 8 Uhr morgens. My phone display lit up.
Over a dozen missed calls, all from Rebecca. I opened none of them. If she wanted Amy to be her new mother, I would let her. I switched to WhatsApp and saw Jeffrey's name flashing at the top of my pinned chats. He had sent several voice messages. I tapped the first. His voice was sharp and angry. "Have you lost your mind, humiliating me in front of Amy? What do you think that looks like?" Second message, "You better come back tomorrow and clean up the mess in the dining room. Don't think I'm lifting a finger." I didn't reply. Instead, I typed just a few words, slowly and deliberately, "See you next month at the county courthouse." That's where the divorce would be formalized. I had already filed. 28 days left on the waiting period.
The phone rang again.
This time, a call. I hesitated, then answered.
"Cynthia."
His voice exploded like a grenade through the receiver. "Do you think you're something special now? 67 years old and playing at divorce, grow up. Let's see how far you get. Do you think you'll make it without the Miller name?" As he railed, I smiled ironically and bitterly to myself. He truly believed that what he gave me was freedom, that the door he left open was an act of grace, not a dog flap to crawl through. I hung up, placed the phone face down beside my pillow, and stared at the ceiling lamp. And in that moment, after all the chaos, after all the pain, my heart was finally still. That night, I answered no calls. The lights were out, except for the faint glow of the bedside lamp. I leaned into the pillows and picked up a small, worn notebook filled with old photographs. The corners were yellowed with age. They held moments from my youth. Me at 20, standing next to Jeffrey in a homemade cotton dress, smiling as if the world was just a promise. But now I saw it clearly. That smile was just a mask, a way to gain affection, to survive, to please a life that never asked what I truly wanted. I used to think I was too old to dream, but the truth was, marriage had rewritten me, piece by piece, into silence. No more. I wouldn't shrink anymore, wouldn't stay small. I looked at my phone, a title appeared, "Women over 67 are redefining what it means to start anew." I clicked save, and in that quiet moment, I made myself a promise. I am still alive, and from now on, I live for me. Just as I put the phone down and was about to turn off the light, a notification popped up on the screen. Jeffrey had updated his Facebook status. It was a photo, Amy, in one of his shirts, cleaning the dining room in my house. She was slightly bent over, smiling. She looked as if she belonged there, as the lady of the house. His caption read, "Some feelings never change. After all these years, I never thought I'd see her again."
High school butterflies.
40 years later, they've taken root. I laughed coldly and hollowly, then another notification appeared. Rebecca's Instagram, the same photo, her caption, Guess who just got a new bonus mom?
Raute family vibes. I lauket out lutein.
Family vibes. If that's the mom you're looking for, go right ahead. The comment section was already on fire. Wait, what happened to his wife? My God, that's Amy Miller from Denver High School. Jeffrey always lands on his feet. Legend. I locked my phone and placed it beside me. The scratch-off ticket was still in the drawer. I leaned forward, took it out, and dialed the Colorado State Lottery number. A cheerful voice sounded over the speaker. Winning numbers confirmed. Ma'am, you have 67 days to claim your prize. I exhaled long and slow. I had truly intended to share it. A fund for Jacob's college, a down payment for Rebecca, perhaps something practical for retirement. But now? Not a single cent. They had shown me no kindness. I owed them no generosity. The next day, I found a small apartment just outside the city center, nestled on a quiet residential street. It belonged to a retired couple who rented out their accessory dwelling unit for $590 a month, with a small balcony and a kitchenette. I signed the lease and moved in that very evening. It wasn't big, but as I sat on the sofa watching the evening sky turn purple and orange, I realized, here no one would lecture me, no one would raise their voice against me, no one would make me feel invisible. For the first time, everything was in my name. The cable bill, the grocery store loyalty card, even the YouTube channel I created. I scrolled through short videos and saw women like me, retired and reborn. A woman driving solo through national parks in her RV. A 70-year-old filming the northern lights in the Alaskan tundra. Someone learning to scuba dive in Hawaii. Another painting sunsets in the Arizona desert. My heart beat faster. I'm going, I whispered. I'll see those places, but this time, I'm not accompanying anyone. This time, the journey is mine. Jeffrey and Amy went viral. That photo, her in his shirt, wiping my kitchen floor as if she'd always belonged there, was just the beginning. A local TV station invited them onto a talk show called Rekindled Hearts, an inspirational segment highlighting romances in later life. Each episode featured gray-haired couples who found love when they least expected it. I turned on the TV as the show aired and watched them right from the start. Jeffrey wore a navy suit, his hair slicked back with gel. A touch of makeup smoothed the wrinkles on his face. Beside him, Amy wore a soft lavender sweater and pearl earrings. Her expression was kind, her smile serene, as if she had rehearsed her whole life for this moment. The host beamed. Our guests today are a very special couple. Childhood sweethearts who lost each other for 50 years and found each other again at 67. Jeffrey looked into the camera and smiled. That weary, romantic smile of a man who had endured life before finally finding peace. Amy and I were classmates in high school. I was in love with her back then, but I was shy, and my family was strict, so I didn't say a word. She wore a floral dress that I still remember as if it were yesterday. He turned to her and tenderly took her hand. She was braver than me. She found me, she made this happen. The host's eyes sparkled. What happened in the years between? Jeffrey hesitated, then let out a self-conscious chuckle that reeked of false modesty. I was actually married. It was an arrangement, something my parents insisted on. We got by. But honestly, if it weren't for the kids, I would have left a long time ago. My chest tightened. Just like that, decades of shared life, meals, births, bills, arguments, raising Rebecca, wiping Jacob's mouth, were erased in a single callous sentence. I was no longer a person, just a plot device, the cold, unwanted wife, a placeholder in a fairy tale about second chances. Within 24 hours, the segment went viral online. TikTok edits landed on the trending page with titles like, Reunited after 55 years. I can't believe it, she's 67 and I'd still marry her.
Wow, that's what love looks like when you nurture it like a garden.
But before I had time to process the show, my phone vibrated incessantly. It turned out I had gone viral too. Not for speaking out, not as the cast-aside wife behind the smiling man, but because someone had unearthed an old surveillance video. Me years ago, arguing with a cashier at a grocery store over a mislabeled item. They had edited it and made it into a compilation on TikTok and YouTube. The title, Meet Jeffrey's First Wife, the Karen Who Owns the Store. The footage was distorted, pixelated. My voice sounded shrill and choppy through the compression. My face was red with frustration, frozen mid-sentence. The captions were brutal. That explains the divorce. Jeffrey said they just got by. Now I get it. She has more rage than my mom on tax day. No one asked why a woman in her 60s argued over a few dollars. No one asked if perhaps she had budgeted every penny her entire life for a family that never noticed.
And Jeffrey started a video channel, Our Golden Ears.
In his first video, he wore an apron while stirring soup. Amy stood beside him, chopping vegetables. Soft jazz played in the background, and the video was titled, Lunch with Your Favorite Silver-Haired Couple. The kitchen was mine.
My countertops, my sauces, my chili recipe.
The comments were a torrent of adoration, so sweet. You can see she loves him. Grandpa ages like fine wine.
67? Seriously, I'm crying.
True love gets a second chance. There were a few dissenting voices. Didn't he have a wife, kids? Didn't he raise his grandson before splitting up? But these were quickly buried under a wave of pastel hearts and couple goals. I sat at the dining table in my apartment, watching their video for the third time. I wasn't crying, but I felt burned, as if someone had poured hot water over my chest again. They turned love into lighting, filters, and background music. And I didn't even get a name, just her. That vague shadow he lived with. I opened my phone and pulled out the photo I had taken at the hospital.
My burn almost healed, the red angry blister, the skin still taut and painful.
I had never intended to reveal anything, but now I understood, if I didn't tell my story, they would continue to write it without me. I didn't have a ring light or music, but I had the truth. I opened my laptop, dragged the burn photo into a new folder named Evidence. This time, I wouldn't wait for someone else to speak. This time, I would tell it myself. I hadn't yet found the strength to tell my own story when the person I loved most delivered the final blow. Just when I thought the worst was over, I saw Rebecca's video. She sat in the living room, Jacob cuddled in her lap. The familiar background, the sofa, the photo wall, the same frames I had hung myself year after year. She hesitated for a moment before speaking, but then her expression shifted to that polished, perfect PR tone she was always so good at. My mom always had a strong personality. That day, Jacob just wanted to bring her a cup of hot chocolate, but she reacted very aggressively. In the end, he was pushed. The bruise took time to heal. Jacob, as if rehearsed, nodded solemnly. I don't like Grandma. She yells and throws plates. Grandma Amy never does that. The comments came quickly, biting and brutal. Wife of an emotional abuser. Sounds like she was hard to live with. No wonder Jeffrey left. She destroyed the whole family vibe. I sat on the small sofa in my apartment, phone in hand, reading every word in silence. I wasn't angry, I was shattered. None of them had been there. None saw the moment the cup spilled or who it burned. But with a few edited sentences, they turned the grandma into the aggressor. I clung to my phone and scrolled through short video tutorials, content strategy tips, and platform tricks, until finally I pressed Upload Video. Under the yellowing kitchen light, I recorded a video. My voice trembled, but I managed to speak the words clearly. Hello, I'm Jeffrey's ex-wife, Jacob's biological grandma. I just wanted to say that not everything you see is the truth. I posted it. The views only trickled in. Disappointed, I was about to close the page when a private message popped up. A user named Truthseeker wrote, "Ma'am, I saw your video. No one will find it if you don't use the right keywords, names, events. Trust me." He included a screenshot with a revised title suggestion. I followed the advice. I reposted, changed the thumbnail, and uploaded a new version, titled, Jeffrey Miller, You Play the Hero. Maybe you should file for divorce first. I added a photo of my hospital report, a close-up of my healing burn, and a brief, quiet voiceover. Yes, I overreacted when the hot chocolate was spilled on me. But tell me, after 30 years of silence, serving and shrinking, who wouldn't break down once they've been driven out of their own home? Within 2 minutes, the video had over 10,000 views. 10 minutes later, it hit number 2 on the local trending list. The comments began to change. Wait, they're not even divorced? What kind of true love is that? Falling in love again is fine, but don't erase the woman who was there before. She posted her hospital report. She's talking with evidence. Of course, there were still critics. She admitted to pushing the kid, and we're supposed to feel sorry for her? I didn't engage. Instead, I posted a second video, again with a photo and voiceover, no filters or music. A medical report. An image of the scarring wound. Just me, sitting under a dim floor lamp, my gaze steady. I pushed him, and if I could go back to that day, I would control myself better. You think I'm controlling? You're right. For 30 years, I controlled mountains of dirty laundry, midnight fevers, dinners for 6 on a $10 budget. You think I'm aggressive because I argued about produce prices at the grocery store? That was the money I had left over from the week's groceries. And if you want to know, no, your father didn't earn it. I saved it, stretched it, made it go far. In the end, I even posted the grocery store's address and the cashier's station number. You wanted to go viral? You got it. 30 minutes later, my phone rang. Jeffrey, his second call since I announced the divorce. I saw the name pulsating on the screen. I let it ring 3 times before I answered. I knew what this was. He wasn't calling to ask if I was coming back. He was calling because the fire had finally reached him. I answered the call. Jeffrey's voice exploded through the line. Pure fury. Cynthia, delete that damn video now. I held the phone away from my ear, my voice calm and cold. I won't delete it. Everything I said was the truth. And in case you forgot, our waiting period ends in 4 days. Once the decree is final, it's over. Then I hung up without hesitation. The comment section remained a battlefield. People tore into Jeffrey and Amy, calling them fake, ripped into Rebecca for betraying her own mother, and even dragged Jacob into the trending tags. But none of it mattered, not to me anymore. I held my winning scratch-off ticket for just 4 more days, and I wouldn't just be cashing in a prize, I'd be turning the final chapter of my life. Honestly, the last 2 weeks living alone had been the brightest, calmest, most peaceful days I'd had in decades. No one barking after dinner. No one interrupting my thoughts. No one judging me for fighting over food, as if that made me less worthy. Just as I was about to put my phone away, another unknown number lit up my screen. It was Amy. Her voice still had that soft, syrupy tone. Cynthia, I know I might have made mistakes too, and I don't want to make excuses, but could you consider deleting the video? It's been really hard for me. I smiled. She always knew how to weaponize fragility. I remembered 7th grade. She had lost an eraser. She didn't name names, started crying, and stared at me.
Tensche softly whispered, Cynthia, can you give it back to Emil?
I hadn't taken anything, but that single tear turned the whole class against me. I should have known. Amy never needed proof, just an audience. This time, I didn't console her. I just said, almost lightly, the video stays.
You cause the role.
Now live with the reviews. A few days later, Jeffrey and Amy deleted their accounts. Rebecca's so-called brand collapsed. Collaborations pulled back, and her comment sections turned against her. She went absolutely silent. Then came the day, the signing of the divorce decree.
County Courthouse.
Jeffrey and I had agreed to meet in the courthouse lobby. When I arrived, he was already there. Amy clung to his arm. He looked at me, scoffed, and said contemptuously, "Do you really think life will be better without me? I'm telling you, if you ever come crawling back, you won't get in." I raised my hand, cutting him off. "Relax. I don't recycle." The court clerk called our names. We went into the office, signed under the watchful eyes of the court staff, and finalized the formalities. The clerk looked up and said, "We'll mail you the formal decree next week. Once you receive it, your marital status will be officially updated. I nodded. The invisible thread that had held me together for 40 years had finally snapped.
As he stepped out of the office, saw Amy and Jeffrey standing aside.
She whispered nervously, "When do we get the papers? Should we plan the marriage license, Jeffrey?" He gently patted her hand. "Soon. Just a little longer, darling. Then it'll be official." As he spoke, he turned and looked back, just to see if I was listening. I was, and I smiled. Newly divorced, and already setting the stage for their next act. What eagerness, what pride. I paused at the exit door and casually dropped, "No rush, hang in there. You'll be taking over my old job soon." Her face went pale. Jeffrey no longer looked so smug. Amy opened her mouth as if to reply but said nothing. Perhaps it was the public setting. Perhaps she hadn't expected me to be so calm. Jeffrey muttered softly, "Ignore her. She's always been dramatic. I hate people who make life into a spectacle." I rolled my eyes and walked away. The only thing left in my mind was a single thought. Men, no matter their age, are truly the most self-centered creatures, and frankly, none of them are all that special. You're not special. I had found that phrase on the internet. I still had much to learn, much life to live. As I stepped out of the courthouse, I opened my phone. The top comment on one of my recent videos caught my eye. "She's starting over at that age. I admire her so much." I smiled just a little and whispered to myself, "Me too." The morning after I received my divorce decree, I booked a train ticket and made my way to the Colorado State Lottery office in Denver. I sat by the window of the Amtrak, watching the world race by, bridges, rivers, towns that passed like a celebration prepared just for me. For the first time, I felt it in my bones. The world truly was bigger than kitchens and laundry rooms. The sky over Denver had a blue I hadn't seen in years. The buildings were taller, the sidewalks cleaner, the people vibrant and purposeful. Instinctively, I reached for my hair, suddenly conscious of how provincial I must look, then smiled to myself because now I had the means to catch up. At the claim center, I signed the check, attended an information session on taxes, and even agreed to an interview with local television. On camera, I wore the new wool coat I had just bought and spoke with a composure I had hard-earned. "I want to donate a portion of the winnings to a women's shelter. There are still many women in this city who feel trapped, just as I was. I want them to know there's a way out." In that moment, I wrote a check for $100,000 to the Safe Haven Network for Women. After the segment aired, people flooded my new social media account. "This woman is the real winner. She got divorced, won the lottery, and then gave back. Wow, that's what female strength looks like. Please, I beg you, start a podcast. I'd fall to my knees to hear your marriage story. Good luck, Grandma. Please tell us your hair color and where you got your coat." And they were right, I had a lot more to do. First, a new haircut. I made an appointment at a hair salon downtown. My stylist, Nora, was a Latina with gray hair, about 50, with an infectious laugh and a bright red manicure. She ran her fingers through my salt and pepper roots and asked, "Ready for something new?" I looked at my reflection, met my own eyes, and said, "Ash brown, some highlights. I want to look like a woman starting a new life." I used to buy the cheapest dye I could find again and again, just to cover the gray so he wouldn't say, "You look old." I used to never buy a piece of clothing over $50 because Jeffrey would scoff, "At your age? What are you trying to prove with all that color?" But that afternoon, I walked into the Burberry boutique downtown. No one rolled their eyes. No one asked, "Do you really need that?" I chose the most expensive trench coat I had ever touched. The saleswoman smiled as she carefully folded it and placed it in a bag. "It's your first." I smiled back. It's the first time I've ever bought something just for me. I spent $5,000 to reward the woman who had finally chosen herself. In the following weeks, it felt as if I had found a new key to life. One that opened doors I hadn't even known existed. I learned to use the subway, navigating the NYC subway like a pro. Before my first flight, I obsessively Googled airport terminal maps, worried about getting in the wrong line, boarding the wrong plane, or holding others up. But of course, I was overthinking it. At the gate, a young airline employee looked up. His eyes lit up as he recognized me. "Ma'am, I saw your story online. I hope you're living your best life." I smiled warmly and firmly. For the first time, I realized, every step I took now was my story. I visited places I had only seen on TV before. The hot springs of Yellowstone shimmered like paint spilled from the sky. The northern lights in Alaska were no filter, they were real. And the ocean breeze in Hawaii. As it swept across my face, I finally understood. 6-7 was not too late. It was exactly the right moment. I opened an Instagram account to share photos from my travels. Under each, I wrote a caption in the best English I could manage, reclaiming my joy, picture by picture. After my travels, I bought a cozy 2-bedroom house in a lakeside village, where the air smelled of pines and the sunset danced on the water. The kitchen window framed every sunset. The balcony overflowed with flowers. I adopted a gray and white stray cat. I named her Charlie. Charlie didn't beg for affection. She spent most of the day lounging behind curtains, chasing dust motes in the sunlight. But every night, like clockwork, she curled up beside the door, guarding my sleep, as if she knew some hearts had been homeless for too long and needed something small warm to care for them. I volunteered in the community. I delivered meals to seniors, visited hospitals, and baked pastries for town festivals. At first, they called me the new Cynthia, but soon I became our Cynthia. For the first time, I understood what it meant to be needed, not used. I loved these days. Quiet, simple, clean like fresh laundry. Days without stains. Then Rebecca's calls began. At first, her tone was syrupy sweet. "Mom, why didn't you tell us you won the lottery? And that donation? Couldn't you have bought a house in the city?" I replied coldly, "Oh yes." Then she hesitated. In the background, I heard Jacob's voice. "Grandma, I miss you. When are you coming home?" I chuckled softly. "You already have a new grandma, don't you? You shouldn't confuse them." There was a long pause on the line, then Rebecca snatched the phone, irritation in her voice. "Mom, you're being petty. You shouldn't be playing on social media. That money should be for Jacob and for your security when you're older." I rolled my eyes. My coffee had grown cold. "You know," I sighed, taking a sip of tea. "It's funny. Every time one of you calls, I lose my appetite." I leaned back and said calmly and clearly, "Don't worry, when I die, you won't have anything to fight over. I've made my will. Every cent will be donated." Then I hung up. She tried to call again later. I blocked her. Sometimes I check their public posts just for fun. Scroll through them like a comedy channel. Now the internet has a name for people like that, digital pets. You know those people who don't make a sound unless you click on them? Yeah, that's them now. A few months later, I noticed Jeffrey and Amy's videos were no longer being updated. At first, there was just silence on their channel, then someone dropped the bomb in a local forum. Amy had moved back in with her sister, and Jeffrey was attending community events alone. No official announcement, no honest post, just a curtain quietly falling on a performance that ended too soon. A few weeks later, unbelievably, Jeffrey called. I stared at the screen for a second before answering. On the other end, he cleared his throat, forcing a casual tone.
"Hello Cynthia, how are you?"
I stood by the kitchen window, watching Charlie stretch on the sun-drenched balcony, and replied coldly, "Are you planning a sequel?" He fell silent. Several long seconds passed. Then came the sentence I knew was coming. "I was just thinking, maybe there's still a chance for us." I smiled. "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm in Alaska right now, watching the northern lights. The connection isn't very good. I have to hang up." And with that, I hung up. I blocked his number. Why even bother with digital pets? Sometimes, even they outgrow you. I don't need anyone to tell me who I am, what I should do, or if I'm worth something. I have my own little house. Charlie guards the door at night. My neighbors bring me extra muffins. I bake them apple pie. I wake up when I want, sleep peacefully, and only speak when I feel like it. Most importantly, I have finally withdrawn from their lives.